Hello and welcome back to Mystic Motivation. If you're new to this channel, my name is Zoe Arnold. I'm a lunar glamour witch, and today I wanted to talk about how we can attract success to ourselves as witches. How can we attract success daily with easy, accessible, and simple practices? So I wanted to go over just a couple of things that I do daily that are super simple that have really created a lot of change in my life, leading to a desired result. So take success however it applies to you. This could be applied to success within a career, money, finances. This could be success within relationships, or it could even just be success within an aspect of yourself you're wanting to embody. But as witches, how can we work with our craft as a means to attract what we're desiring? So let's waste no time and jump right into it. The first thing I wanted to talk about is how we can work with our astrological chart to attract success. So, as a glamour witch, there's two aspects of my chart that I work with the most to help me embody the energy that I need to in order to attract anything that I'm trying to call to myself. So, I work with my midheaven and my Venus sign the most. For me, both of these areas of my chart are a fire sign. So it's a bit more simple for me. I could just work with the fire element to help attract what I'm desiring. So let me use a bit of my chart as an example. Midheaven is all about your career. It's about your reputation, your public image, and your life's calling. So working with whatever sign is in your midheaven can help you to symbolically and aesthetically show up different to become more attractive to whatever you're trying to call in. Say it was more money or an up level within your career. So since my midheaven is in Aries, I can apply that fiery, bold, more passionate, more leadership type energy towards what I'm trying to call into myself to kind of naturally evoke that energy of confidence within myself and also be a magnet to my desires. So an example here is before I started working with my midheaven, and this might relate in your chart as well, when you look at um, the opposite sign from your midheaven. So mine's Aries, the opposite would be Libra. That can sometimes be the energy you might naturally reside in. So for me, it's definitely true. Libra, I definitely reside in a more kind of gray energy. If things are black and white, I'm always in the gray. I tend to be diplomatic. I tend to always see everybody's perspective. I tend to kind of try to ease things. I stay in my comfort zone. I don't like to be polarizing, but it's in my chart's fate to be more polarizing. So that's one of the lessons you can find in your chart of what needs to be worked through as a means to get to your most attractive, as in, magnetic self, is to work with the midheaven and recognize that opposite sign to see where you may be laying dormant and kind of work through to get to the sign that's actually there. So another example is like, say your midheaven was in Taurus, that's an earth sign. So Taurus would be, and I'm pretty sure Marilyn Monroe was a Taurus midheaven. And so her symbolically, she showed up like luxury, right? Really luxury, the finer things, very elegant. So you would want to show up as that energy to attract more of that. And we're each going to have different definitions of like what's fiery energy, what's earth-like energy, what relates to these different signs. But that's for you to discover, and that's where it really becomes fun. So the same thing when you start to work with your Venus sign, another area of your chart that I think is really beneficial in general when trying to attract what you desire. The planet Venus is all about romantic relationships, friendships, relationships of kind of any kind, aesthetic tastes, magnetism, and money. So it's working with your Venus sign again to, as a glamour witch, I lean towards symbols and aesthetics, but it's evoking an energy through symbols, through aesthetics to magnetize what you're desiring towards you. And so it's kind of in this more like seductive way when you're working with your Venus sign. It's kind of in a more, you could say, like pleasurable way to lure in your desired success. But again, giving an example here, my Venus sign is also a fire sign. So it's easy for me to lean into the aesthetics of a fire sign element, or to lean into the personality traits of a fire sign to understand that that's what's going to help me magnetize things more quickly. And again, everybody's interpretation of how to work with the signs will be a bit different, but researching your specific sign under your midheaven, under your Venus sign can really be helpful. And so daily working with that energy to attract what you're desiring, and specifically, like if it was money, a career that you're trying to bring in, showing up as those signs represented within you to bring that towards you. So keep that in the back pocket with the rest of these recommendations. I feel like if you can apply your midheaven and Venus sign to the rest of these recommendations, it's just going to amplify the energy even more as a witch, how to magnetize and attract success of any kind towards you. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is one of my most favorite things to do to attract something to me, is working with frequency, sound, and music. So when I first started my journey, one of the biggest things that caused a shift in not only my internal world, but my external world was changing the music I listened to. So I want to preface this by saying, like, no, you don't have to stop completely listening to a certain style of music. But what I did notice for myself is that prioritizing music that had a positive message, that maybe went to a tune that was a more higher frequency, when I started listening to music that was speaking positively about the things I was wanting to call into my life, I began to believe those things were possible for me over a progression of time, just noticing a more positive, optimistic outlook in my mind and my reality shifting to that. So back when I first started my journey in 2019, I had a tendency, like I really liked like melancholy type music, just kind of music that would make me think of like the hardships I was dealing with at the time, or hardships I had dealt with in the past. And it's beautiful and it's poetic. And again, you can listen to music that has a deep meaning to you, that may be more on the sad side or more reflective on things that you've experienced. But if it's more dominant than positive music, it's what your subconscious is going to kind of latch onto, right? Because at the end of the day, the foundation of witchcraft, the foundation of alchemizing energy, it's based in science. It's rooted in science. It's about how our subconscious literally attaches to symbols. It's the red car theory. When you start talking about red cars, you're more likely to notice them when you go out and about. And the same principle is applied when, we're guided to, if we're working with a guide or an ancestor or a deity, if that aligns in your practice. When you give them a specific angel number and you're meant to release that and let it go, when you do see it, your eye is caught to it because it was planted in your subconscious. Like, okay, when I come across this thing, allow me to see it so I can have confirmation on whatever I'm seeking guidance on. So our music that we listen to is the same way. If we can start to create playlists that align with what we're trying to attract in, again, for simplicity, just sticking with the example of you're wanting a career development, you're wanting more money to come in, you have a playlist that's talking well over money, that's speaking confidently over money, about how you're magnetic to money. And if you can play that daily, it's really going to root into your subconscious. You're going to have more confidence in that area. You're going to notice a shift in the way that you see that area of your life. So if you're watching this video and you're trying to attract success as a witch in an area that maybe you've been dormant in for a while, I think this can be a really helpful way to subconsciously, just in the background when you're hanging out at your house, when you're driving in your car, play music that's going to help you work up the courage energetically to believe you're worthy of that thing that you're trying to attract. I'm thinking back of like in the 90s, it's probably still a thing now, but there was an episode of Friends where I think Chandler was trying to quit smoking, and he would listen to those like subconscious, what is it? Those affirmations you play when you're sleeping, and like I think people were making fun of him, and people think that's like a weird, embarrassing thing to do. But there's actually a lot of science backed in that now, and so many more people listen to subliminals. That's what it's called, or like some sort of affirmation playlist to align themselves with what they're desiring. And this created a lot of change in my life. It's the exact thing that led me to becoming a sound healing practitioner and doing singing bowls and sound bath meditations, was just seeing the difference that was caused within me in prioritizing even that, playing hertz frequencies that are associated with, 432 hertz is like your heart chakra. So it's just like opening yourself up, more positivity, more love, and also slowing down your nervous system to create peace. It changed so much of who I was. I had, a lot of things to process, and I was rather like finicky at the beginning of my journey, just starting my healing journey. and changing the music and working with hertz frequencies really changed a lot. So I would say I rambled on that one for a minute, but it creates such a difference. Again, you don't have to cut out poetic music that means something to you, but if you could find more music that is talking about what you're desiring and make that a daily ritual, it can really aid you in being more attractive and believing you're worthy of what you're trying to call in as a witch. My next recommendation, this is kind of a fun one if you want to bring in some spell crafting into how you can attract more success daily. Working with some sort of money plant. If you can get a plant at the store, it doesn't have to be a traditional money plant. You could literally get like a rose bush, and you aid that plant, you take care of it, you water it daily. And when you first get that plant, you kind of like initiate it into your intention. So you get the plant, I want my career to grow. You might put some crystals or correspondences into the soil that represent your intention that you're trying to attract. You might write on a piece of paper your intention and tuck it into the soil. And then you're on a watering routine with that plant. You make sure it's getting sunlight. You might go to the plant and, whisper affirmations to it. And as you're nurturing that plant symbolically, you are nurturing that energy of what you're desiring as well, because that plant has one intention. That plant is the intention of the growth that you are trying to attract. And so as we physically take care of a plant, that's a spell to physically take care of that energy energetically, therefore attracting it to you. So it's like a fun way to have something, if you want to challenge yourself a bit more, to take something care of something daily that symbolically represents what you're trying to call in. It creates all the difference. And you could apply this to anything, really. It's just if there's something you can tend to daily that represents what you're trying to call into your life that you want more success around, nurturing that is just a direct in direct relation to nurturing your intention. Now, my next recommendation is probably the most in depth, but if you're looking to get creative, it's the most fun, which is persona crafting. So, this is where you create an archetype, a version of yourself that embodies what you're trying to call in, that already has what you're trying to call in, that would represent you, that obtains what you're calling in, and you work with that archetype, you embody that archetype as a means to get closer to your desire. So for an example here, if I'm trying to call in money and I want an up level in my career, I can begin to create an archetype like I would of, you could think of it like a deity or like a goddess, like goddess Aphrodite. You think of her correspondences, they're very clear. You could think of the statues of Aphrodite and they're very clear. You associate her with love and beauty. You think of the seashells, you think of pearls, dolphins, roses. You get really specific with that version of yourself, like you would a goddess, a deity, an archetype of what correspondences would align with the version of you that has that success within your career. What do they wear? What is their style? What energy do they embody? And this is where we can bring back in, right, our midhaven or our Venus sign, so we can help us aid in the aesthetics that might be necessary to create that persona that can help us to embody what we're looking for. So again, I'll just use mine as an example, but the version of me that I evoke, say that I'm going to an event where there's a lot of potential opportunities of meeting new clients. So I want to show up as my most like attractive self to grow my business, to grow my clientele. So I'll invoke like an archetype of myself that's like, okay, she's the one that can handle that type of success. She is in that fiery energy. So she's going to I purposefully wore my leather jacket today as an example. That's one of the things that are associated with like the Aries midheaven. So like she wears a leather jacket, she wears red lipstick, she wears her hair maybe more free and wild, right? I'm not gonna like straighten my hair at all. I'm just gonna let it be curly and just do my thing. So that is the energy that I would evoke to feel that confidence that I can obtain that up level that I'm wanting when I show up. So when we persona craft a version of ourselves that obtains what we're desiring, and then we embody them, right? Okay, just like we would with Aphrodite, if I'm wanting to bring in more beauty, let me wear those pearls, let me wear blues like the sea foam, let me set a dolphin as my lock screen or something, like I'm working with that energy, that fluid energy of beauty, we would do the same with our own archetype, if that makes sense. So it's fun to work with our astrological chart in persona crafting, and it's also fun in general to do persona crafting as a daily ritual of like, let me show up as that version of myself for a while until I get that thing that I'm trying to attract into my life. But if you want to dive more deeply into persona crafting, I have a full podcast episode called Creative Means to Heal through Archetypes and Persona Crafting on YouTube and Spotify. So you can kind of dive deeper into it. But it's just a fun way to work with aesthetics. Again, it's a bit of glamour magic, right? It's shifting the perception of the energy outside of us to kind of bend to what we're preferring or trying to call in. Okay, now this next one is really simple, but again, done daily can really make a difference. So working with some sort of liquid, some sort of drink that you have daily, it could be coffee, it could be tea, it could be water, whispering your intention into it and drinking it. As simple as that. But it's similar to how we worked with the money plant, right? When you have something where its only intention is what you're trying to, the success you're trying to call in, that's what you're associating that thing with. So the nourishment of a cup of tea, of a cup of water, with the intention of like, I'm bringing in more money, there's an up level in my career, I'm going to get that promotion, and you're having that drink and you're doing it daily, you're nourishing your body with that intention. And so you could add a little bit of a cinnamon to be a correspondence of that abundance, but it's really a way to allow yourself prioritize daily, even small ritualistic simple ways, what you're wanting to call in. You could also do this, since I have this sitting here, moon water. This is moon water I made 2 nights ago with the lunar eclipse. And whenever I set out moon water, I always whisper my intention for the duration of the month, the rest of the moon cycle, of like what I'm wanting to release or welcome in order to move forward in my journey. So you can whisper your intentions into some moon water, set it out under the full moon, take it. And for me personally, I don't use water spells too often. I like to work with fire a lot in candle magic. So I use moon water mostly for my rituals I do on Fridays in the shower. So I always make sure to wash my hair on Fridays. It's Venus Day, so it's a day associated with beauty, attraction in general. So it's just a good day to kind of lock your intentions into your hair. I'll pour just a little bit of the water over my head for the 4 Fridays moving forward until the next full moon. To lock in whatever my intention is for that duration of the moon cycle. So again, lunar witch here. So if you want to work with it in that way, you can do it whenever you want. You can work with water magic however you want, but just speaking your intention into any liquid you're drinking. Water does hold memory. And so we can think of it as that way of like just evoking that energy to run through our system or to run over our body, to lock it into our hair if you want to do it the way that I do. And it's just like a great way, again, as for the rest of all of these things, to just make your intention, the thing you're trying to attract, a constant. I think that when a lot of witches are starting their journey, or just people in general on a spiritual journey, they feel like there's that one thing that they've been trying to bring into their life and it's been taking a long time. Even though something might be on the forefront of your mind all the time, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's enough to attract it to us. There has to be some sort of effort applied to the law of attraction of taking action. We can't just hold it in our head, just hold it in our soul and hope that it comes in. There has to be something we do that's kind of creating like a safety net to where that desire feels like it can come to you and that you're ready to hold it, which is why I fell in love with working with symbols and aesthetics and spell crafting, because it's hands-on learning to get to what we desire, to become an alchemist of energy rather than just being passive and allowing things to unfold, which I think a lot of us are taught in society to kind of do in a way. It teaches us to a way that we can take action to bring in what we're desiring. So all of these are really simple, but they're daily practices done where we can become attractive to whatever success we're calling in. We have to become what we desire. It's the same concept as above, so below. When we are desiring something, we have to embody it to the point that we deeply understand it. We understand the shadow aspects and the light aspects, right? Because with more we've been sticking with the example of money, there's also more responsibility that comes with that. So in embodying the version of yourself, the persona crafting of the money you want, you're speaking the money you're desiring into your drinks, your what else are we talking about? Yeah, you created a playlist of music that's calling in that money. You're working with your astrological chart to call in that money. You have a spell plant or something you're nurturing daily to bring in that money. Over that time, with that being such a daily thing that you're nurturing, you're going to get to know it very well. It's the same as like when you start to get, you've fall in love with a partner, and the more that you're talking, it's, you progress your relationship and it becomes more of a daily thing, and you're starting to to know each other better. And those illusions of perfection go away, and you start to see their imperfections, but you start to love them and understand them and learn how to work with them. It's the same thing with any type of energy that we're trying to call in. We have to deeply understand it, and we have to be quite close to it for it to feel almost like safe. Like you can have it, you can handle it, it will be treated well within your hands. It's just like a good way to see it symbolically, that whatever we're desiring wants to be nurtured and understood. So these are really quite simple practices that I do daily to evoke and call in whatever I'm desiring. So I'm hoping that you found something here that resonates with you, that if you try one or if you try a couple of these, let me know how that progresses for you. I want to hear from you guys, and also give recommendations. What do you do to attract success into your life as a witch? Drop those in the comments to help out other witches who are looking to become better alchemists of energy. Before we end this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about my online coven, the Scarlet Rose Coven. Our next gathering is going to be on March 15th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We are celebrating the Sabbath Ostara. So this is the Spring Equinox. This is just 5 days before the Spring Equinox on March 20th. So we're going to be diving into the witchcraft history of Ostara and aligning our spell work, self-care, and sacred practices during that night of the coven with Ostara, so that we can really amplify our intentions and begin to take action and grow along with the season of spring. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can align your witchcraft practice with the seasons, come join a Scarlet Rose Coven. We have playbacks of the coven, so if Sunday night doesn't work for you, if you're not free, a playback of the coven is always available for 30 days. As a Scarlet Rose member, you also gain access to our Discord chat, where you can stay in contact with the fellow members of the Scarlet Rose Coven. And every Monday, I upload a journal prompt and an oracle card so that we can keep our practices aligned between covens. Each month, you also gain access to a new workbook and or meditation. So you get a library of resources that can deepen your witchcraft practice, where you can learn about different subsects of magic or just deepen a specific area of yours. And it's just a really special community to stay devoted to your practice, to show up and be able to speak to other witches and just have a space where you can nurture yourself, do these sacred practices, do some spell work, do self-care, all while learning more about the history of witchcraft. So I'll put more details about the Scarlet Rose Coven in the caption below. And if you'd like to join, just go to the link in bio and click the Covens tab. I appreciate you witches being here. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to stay up to date on future videos. And I'll see you back here soon. Much love.